Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Brother and Sister Podcast. I am your host, Pork Flavor. My co-host is
Tressa Mitchner.
and our special guest on part 2, y'all, Miss Treneti Brown. How you doing, Treneti?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Awesome to hear from you again. We had such an amazing time the first round. We had to go part 2.
Yeah, so Treneti, just like I said before, your story is outstanding. What you're offering to the people in the community is amazing. Offering to our world is such a great topic, and I'm very inspired by the work that you're doing. So I just wanted to pick up, where I left off at from actually just my reading, where you're talking about the arc of time. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, so the arc of time is this concept that I came up with to help us creators get really realistic about what the whole picture of what's going on in our reality in relationship to our creative process, so that we can, it's a tool to honestly like be in right relationship with yourself and to not become inundated by the inner critic. In part 1, we talk about all the different types of space that you need to create, the environment, the people around you, all of those different things. And in the arc of time, we take an assessment of where we are at the moment that we're beginning this 3-month cycle of planning. So, there's 3-month cycles of seasons. So that's like a good amount of time to really like check in. So what we do is we reflect both on the quantitative elements of our life and the qualitative elements of our life. So it's quantitative is like, okay, where do you live? Qualitative is like, how does where you live make you feel?
Right.
As we can imagine, as a creator, that's actually a pretty important factor, especially when we go back to the creating space and environment. Knowing how your living situation is affecting you is important in like understanding your creative process and what challenges that may be kind of outside of your control,
right,
that may impact your process. So like the whole point of the arc of time is to really reflect on like, where am I at? Where do I want to be? And then it goes through and it takes us into a journey, of like visioning. The first arc of time, the beginning is like, okay, now we're going to vision. Now that we know where we are, we're going to vision. We're going to set those goals on where we want to be. And we're going to start to take it from the big space and chunk it down into more actionable steps. And then the 3-month cycle closes again with another arc of time that goes through gratitudes, and grievances, and also like the next level of like where you want to go, to just like check in and make sure that you're really like giving yourself the proper reverence for your process and all the factors that were at play.
So let me ask you, I know all of us have that inner critic. So give us more information about helping people to discover, the inner critic within themselves. Because some people may think that it's like they're operating against themselves, but it's always a opposite force that's working against you. And then that inner critic is that main one that holds you back, that's telling you you can't do this. It's always trying to sabotage the gift that you already have. So how can we help ourselves with our environment as well as dealing with the inner critic? Because everybody got different environments they're in, and that environment we're in is either assisting our creativity or it's hindering our creativity. So if we just say we're in a negative environment or something, how do we deal with that inner critic when we already in a negative space, in other words?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I want to start with your first question of like identifying exactly what the inner critic is, because I found in my work, because I do work with clients, and a lot of the work that I do with clients is about like embodiment and through clearing and like getting the trauma in the system out. And so to understand the inner critic, we have to understand that the textbook definition of trauma is not the real definition of trauma. The textbook definition of trauma, like DSM, whatever, they're like, you got to be in front of an explosion or your arm gets cut off or something crazy and big. Right. But trauma is anything that happens to you or does not happen for you that dysregulates your nervous system to the point where your brain chooses not to process it and throws it downstairs into the limbic part of the brain where it just runs on autopilot, on a loop. There's no time down there. Right. So it's always happening. And so this voice develops that is, it's kind of this distorted protector, the inner critic. Mm-hmm. It thinks it's helping you. It kind of like picks up on the things that maybe your parents said to you or your early developmental environment, peers said to you, and then it attacks you, trying to protect you from anything that it doesn't understand, which is going to be any form of change that comes along in your life post the moment that it occurred, which you can probably see how complicated that is for us, because like a lot of times these things, these voices or this part of us, it starts to get developed when we're like 2 or 3 before we even have good sentences. It starts to get developed. So that's what the inner critic is this voice that's kind of suppressing your process and suppressing your ability to fully fall into faith and believe in yourself. Now, the question that you asked about what do you do when you're in a bad environment or around bad people, which is, this is oftentimes for a lot of people, this is the starting point, right? Where when we wake up and we realize we have a dream, we realize, dang, ain't nothing around me looking like this dream that I got. Right. And that's where, and you know, some people may not agree with me, but if you read my book, you'll see that I reference God all up and through the book. Because for me, that's where God comes in. That is where really starting to create that inner space, because once you start to create that inner space, it will start to reflect out. And when you have to lean in to yourself, you have to lean into self-confidence and create it for yourself. You have to look at your environment and identify, what can I change today? So what can I change tomorrow, you know?
Mm-hmm. So me dealing with my own inner critic and things that happen, like you said, trauma is that the definition, like you said, that's totally not right, because trauma is, it could be molestation, it could be bullying, it could be anything like those things. But what I learned for us dealing with that inner critic myself is you can't change anything that you're not willing to confront. So we have to confront this inner critic and basically stand up to this inner critic, because that's not who you was gifted to be. It's not the gift that's been placed in you. And it keeps you from manifesting that gift. It's like that inner critic constantly battles you so that you can't, because it's going to keep trying to tell you to be stuck, in other words. And we're not stuck. But
you got to go through it and not around it, you know?
Exactly.
Once you go through it, then it's okay. I got this behind me, on to the next one. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of, that's with everything. I learned it because I used to go around everything. I ain't want to deal with it. I go around that, but it always came back. And then when I found out, I don't want to go around this no more, I got to go through it. And once I went through it, it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be when you went through it. And it kind of worked out in your favor when you finally went through it, because it was like, okay, God, help me out on this. And once you say that, it always turns out good.
Yeah, totally. Going through it is huge. And I just want to say too, with the going through it, there can be great loss going through the inner critic. It's not necessarily, going through it doesn't mean that it's going to feel good automatically. Going through it is actually like an incredibly uncomfortable process. And like, depending on like what your inner critic looks like and what the environment that you're breaking free from is like, there's going to be a different level of intensity for that. For some people, it's going to be a lot of physical, external reality intensity. For some people, it's going to be emotional intensity. For some people, it's going to be everything. Like, you have to just keep going and know that, like, on the other side of that, there's substantial long-term change on the other side of that. And that voice isn't really necessarily gonna go away. Like what happens is as you grow, it gets silent at the certain level that you're at. But as soon as you start growing again, it's gonna reactivate. And you'll just get better and better at recognizing it and being like, one of the things I like to say is like, there, little bear.
Yeah, that's right.
Like there, little bear. Like I hear you.
Right.
But like one of the things I think that people do that doesn't work is like, don't shove it down. You can tell it no. You can explain to that part of you why it's not relevant. And I encourage in the multiplicity section of the book in the first half, where I talk about the round table and meeting with the aspects of yourself. That's like parts integration work. I highly recommend like really identifying the aspects of yourself and having conversations with them, bringing them up to speed to where you're at and where you're trying to go, and like being compassionate and grateful for what they are and what they did for you when you didn't need it, because there's no aspect of you that is a part of you that you didn't at some point need to survive.
Right.
And so that's a big part of the alchemy of that energy, for sure.
So I know,
oh gosh, that's crazy.
yeah. So one thing I've definitely learned about that as well is when that inner critic rises up, what I do is I pay attention. Is that inner critic that I'm listening to or I'm hearing, are you serving me now? If it's no longer serving me or serving my purpose, I need to basically quiet that down and to believe in me and trust in me that God has something higher. He has something better. Because a lot of these, well, it could be the inner critic or the outer critic, because we got critics as well.
There's both.
Yeah. So, we have to pay attention. Are you serving me? Is this thought serving me? Is this thought process serving me? If it's not serving me anymore, or if it's causing me to go backwards or think in a negative way, I have to learn how to put that inner or that outer critic away so that I can continue to press on in the process. So I think a major topic that we're talking about is this inner critic or the outer critic. And we just help people to break this cycle of listening to the inner critic, mainly because the inner critic is a part of you that's really can hinder you and keep you stuck when there's no reason for you to be stuck, because you have this gift in you that needs to be manifested so that God can help you help others. And that inner critic will cause you to be scared, afraid, trying to run away from it, trying to saying it's not going to work for me. It's not enough money for me. It's no way I can get it into space. But those thoughts no longer serve you. So we have to learn how to quiet them down. So I'm trying to tell people and help people with that as well. So give us more of that, because that's a lot of what we need to understand on that inner critic and how to deal with the inner critic as well as the outer critic.
So it's funny because like I know you want to talk about part 2, which is the planner pages, but this is making me want to go back where it's into part 1, into the section there's a whole section of the book dedicated to this process, because it is very much like it's the biggest thing you contend with, honestly, in the process. And the section is called Navigating Resistance.
Yes.
And so one of the things that's been super helpful for me is to actually understand the different kinds of self-sabotage, like how it shows up, because it's not all, sometimes it's a little like what I call a doubt gremlin. That's like, you can't do that, like that ain't gonna work, you shouldn't do that, who's gonna want to see you, who's gonna want, like that little gremlin in your head that's like, nah. Sometimes it shows up like that. And I call that like the mental self-sabotage pattern. But then depending on who we are, how we are, what we've been through, there can be physiological self-sabotage. It can show up in that way, where like you literally are about to do something that's very powerful and going to break you through to the next level of yourself, or cause you up in a certain way, or just is an edge. Like if you like have trouble socializing and stuff, you might get a physiological response. You might feel really tired all of a sudden, or just like, lethargic, or like you can't do it. And you'll need to like really sit with that. And that one's really nuanced, because you have to be like, okay, like, why am I feeling like this? Is this like actual sickness, or am I trying to avoid this thing that I want to do. And therefore I need to figure out how to overcome this physiological response, because it's really just fear,
Right.
oftentimes. And then there's like circumstantial victimization, which this is like a dual play of inner and outer critic, where it's like, I can't do this because so and so didn't do this yet, or I can't do this because of I can't make my painting because my house is too small to make my painting. Like whatever it is, excuse about your circumstance that's like so giant that you can't pursue what it is that you're trying to pursue. Or like, I've met so many creators that they're just like, well, I know that one day I'll just like end up in like the perfect environment. I really need to be in like the perfect environment to start my creation. It's like, no, the only way you're going to get to that perfect environment is if you start your creation.
That's right.
And so that's a big part. And then the outer critic, I call that in here villainization. This is a really big one that comes up, especially in working with teams to create your project or whatever it is you're doing. And the villainization piece is when the inner outer critic starts to blame others, or just create like it's like a weird little energy comes into people that's just like turns the person that's trying to help you into the villain.
Right.
Like, you know, and it's like all of a sudden it's all their fault that nothing is working, or you like figure out a way to make a conflict or a drama happen, and then it like shatters the whole thing, and it's really didn't need to happen, but it was a tactic to sabotage the project so that you didn't have to lean in all the way through and get through that. And so in the book I give different examples of how that could show up, and like practices that you can do to make sure that if that's something that, because it's not across the board, everyone doesn't experience every single one of these, but like you'll know, it'll call you out, like you'll feel it. If that's you'll be able to think back to memories of that happening. And so there's different practices in here that are just designed to help you navigate that. And then there's even like a questionnaire, like a check-in identifiers to like kind of like just gauge if what you're experiencing is resistance or not, because it's a dance, it's subtle.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, you're such an artist in so many different ways. What was the thing that started all that? What was your like when you was coming up, like for me, for an example, when I watched a certain movie, like when hip hop went in, and at first when I first heard rap song on the radio, when I was like, it just caught me. Like what was your experience when you like doing your book, doing your music? What was your first thing that really caught you to make you like, oh man, I gotta be a part of this?
Oh, for me, it was dance.
Dance.
I loved to dance.
Break dance, and I seen the first break dancer, I went crazy. So like, I got to be a part of like, what's going on here. Like the dance and the music, it coexisted together, and it was like so amazing. And like, I've been a part of it ever since. So yeah, the dance is really
Yeah, dance and performance, because me and my cousins, we lived with my grandma when I was little, and we all just had really big imaginations, and we would put on talent shows for her.
Oh, wow.
Like we would just like make up dances and plays and all sorts of things, and we would be like go in the kitchen, because I was like the biggest room in the house, and you know the living room is off limits, so we would go in the kitchen and put on a play for her. And then in elementary school, I went to my first real dance, and I wasn't hip on like the Chicago street dancing yet, so I got picked on at the first dance. Everybody picked on me, and the only person that would dance with me was my cousin, because I was doing all the lame dances from like PBS Kids that I learned, because that's all my grandma let me watch. And so then I was like, I took that embarrassment of not being cool enough and being like alienated. And I was like, you know what? Next year, I'm going to be the best dancer. And so I like would practice all the street dances, like behind the little, like we had like a microwave TV table, and my grandma couldn't see me. I would put my little tape in the Barbie radio and practice all the street dances. And then like the next year I went to the school dance, and I like crushed it, and everybody was like, oh. And then from there, it just like, I like got in a dance company. I started competing in the Chicago footworking dance battles and all sorts of stuff. It just kind of took off.
But for them to do that to you, like, you know, to pick on you and do all that stuff, that's what lit the fire. You know what I'm saying? That fire you got inside you, like, nah, I'm coming back next year and I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
And that's Yeah, and that's how Pug put it. You know, it took something hard and tough to light the fire, and that's what tends to happen to most of us. We'll sit there on our gifts and talents, but it takes something hard or difficult or a circumstance that we don't like to light that fire for us. You know, so it's just and even when I think about that, I think about that as being part of our outer critic, because it could come from another area or another person or another situation that lights that inner critic that would not light it, but light that fire because of the outer critic. So we just have to you just have to make sure that everything is don't look at things as bad, because things happen.
Yeah. If you love something, never let anyone telling you that you're not good at the thing that you love stop you.
Right.
Because getting good at it is practice. That's all that it is. And so if you are not good at it yet and somebody tries to shut you down, don't let that shut you down. Like, alchemize that. Like, be like, oh, okay, like, watch, I'm gonna be good at it, and like use that, you know. That's the best way to not be defeated.
That's
right. Let fire to encourage you to push forward and go hard.
And you really went hard in this book, because just like I said, I absolutely love this book. I love a lot of the exercises, the action items that you put in there for people to do. I haven't tried any yet, but I want to try some of them, because I think it's really, well, I do some meditation, but I think your book helps people to understand what meditation is, what dedication and meditation. A lot for people who don't know how to do it. So I mean, I'm just thrilled at the information that you have given out. But before we run out of time this time, I do want you to let everyone know how they can contact you, where they can purchase the book from. We will also put a link on our site as well, where people can get your book. We will be bringing you on another show, which is called the CAN Network, which is the Coffee Awakening Network soon. So just tell the audience, because I want them to make sure that they can contact you if for any information, if they need it, or get set up on a strategy session call or anything, you know, things that you offer.
So I am doing a special with strategy sessions and honoring the book, and there's going to be a series of master classes and stuff. So the best place to know about everything is to just like find my name on it's Treneti.com. If you go there and sign up for my email list, you will be notified of any and all activities that I'm doing. And from there, that's the best like starting space. And from there, it'll trickle out. Like, I have some other websites and businesses. So just start there, Treneti.com. If you're a social media person and you're on Instagram, Treneti Music on Instagram, Treneti Music on YouTube, Treneti Music on Facebook. I don't really TikTok. I have an account, but if you try to message me on TikTok and I never get back to you, is because that thing is way too stimulating for my nervous system. And as far as where you can get the book, you can get it right there on Amazon. There's going to be a link that you can access in the chat notes, but it's the Aligned Action Planner for Creative Souls. The cover is super cool like this, and that's where you can get it. There's a hardcover version and a soft cover.
And also please subscribe and like to your YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
You get a chance, go on the our podcast and check out the concert I did. It's about 20-25 minutes long, but I want you to check it out. Give me some feedback on it.
Okay, cool. Sweet, I will definitely.
So it's going pretty. Like I said, the last time we got cut off. So anything that you want to tell the world, what would you let them know?
Just don't give up on yourself. There's no failure if you never give up. And like, things can get really intense sometimes. Like, I'm like, for whatever reason, my incarnation has been one where I've like experienced a lot of really intense swings of just like circumstance and different stuff. And what has helped me and held me through all of that is my trust and faith in God, and like ability to lean on that when there's nothing else. But just don't give up. There's no reason to give up. Like, you already have an expiration date that's predetermined by our creator of when you're going to leave this vessel. So until you leave this vessel, there is no reason to give up.
Right.
And once you leave this vessel, then you ain't got problems no more. You moved on. So
Eddie, you heard it. You heard it first.
That's absolutely perfect. So yes, please subscribe and like on Treneti's YouTube channel as well. She's an amazing person. She's trying to help the world. Just like she's told you, she has an amazing book that's out there that I absolutely love. So please get a copy of her book as well. And we're so happy that you joined our podcast, Treneti.
Yeah. And check out the music. There's so much, all the music that I make is like trauma informed, from the ambient stuff that's for meditation all the way to the dance floor music. It's EQ'd in a way that it's really nice and kind on your nervous system. So yeah, enjoy the sound.
You doing like a singing, rapping, kind of a little bit of both of them? What you got going on?
Who, me? I do all the things. Like my rapping is more like poetic rapping kind of style. There's definitely people who go harder than me. But I like to sing a lot. And then I also have a lot of tracks that have no vocals at all. It's just like compositions, like ambient or just instrumental compositions. I'm really inspired by Impressionism and just making cinematic journeys where people have space to hear themselves inside of the music.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm gonna check it out so we'll get off.
Yeah, yes. Awesome. Yes. I will have yeah, he would definitely go on there and he would like, subscribe as well.
Yeah.
So once again, we're so happy to have you again, Treneti. So Pug, you want to go ahead and end the podcast?
Yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this podcast as well. Miss Treneti, it's such an honor and a please like, subscribe to the channel. Please, we love y'all. We thank y'all. And like I said, once again, Ms. Treneti, it is an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. And we look forward to having you again as well. So definitely, everybody, we love y'all. We thank y'all. Peace.
Peace out.